Let's start with the quarterback situation there at Alabama. Should Alabama fans be freaking out, Ted?
No.
That QB situation, very interesting.
Not great. Not great. It's average at best. But here's the thing about, and I understand that everyone is a bit panicked, but outside of maybe Georgia, and it's just a maybe, it's not like a Georgia. Alabama has the best roster in all of college football. They just signed the number one class in the country, one of the best classes ever. They're going to be just fine. They may not have who we would consider at the moment to be a Heisman candidate at quarterback, but everyone on the team is going to make the quarterback better. I am maybe the only person that's not really worried about it for Alabama.
I'm not overly concerned either. And I think, and I'm not trying to say that Oklahoma has been on the level of Alabama, right? Because that has not been the case, right?
Right.
Georgia has taken the belt, right, of college football. You got to say Georgia's the best program right now. They're back-to-back national champs. There's just no debating it. But Alabama has been the power of college football for quite some time now. But it feels very similar to OU's quarterback situation, right? Because Bama just had one hell of a run.
That's right.
Right at quarterback. Remember, it was Hurts. Then Tua took that job. Then it was Mac Jones. Then it was Bryce Young. I mean, we're talking first-round draft pick after first-round draft pick. And now you look at it, Tommy Reese comes in, gets a good look at both Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson throughout spring practice, and they ultimately decide, I don't know if this is it. And you have to assume that, I would never accuse anyone at Alabama of tampering, but somehow the message was relayed to Notre Dame's starting quarterback from a year ago, Tyler Buchner, that, hey, we could use your services down here in Tuscaloosa. And he just happens to enter the transfer portal there from Notre Dame and is now heading to Alabama to reunite with his former offensive coordinator. Funny how that works out. But Bama's had one hell of a run at QB, just like OU had, right? Leading up to, there was Rattler, but Rattler wasn't awful. But then it was Caleb Williams, and then it got to Dylan Gabriel. Is this kind of like the Dylan Gabriel section of Alabama's run at QB? Like, we haven't seen a bunch from Ty Simpson, certainly, and we've seen very little from Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what those guys are like. And obviously it's a situation that people are, the way Saban talked about it is he was pretty critical of those guys and the fact that they've got a quarterback transferring in at the time they do from where he was, like, says that they're really worried about the quarterback spot. But and I'm not saying that he's not any good, but whenever the rest of your roster is as good as Alabama's is, just look at Georgia. Georgia just won 2 national championships with a guy that came from junior college. And where do you get drafted? Was
fourth round.
Okay. And I'm not trying to make any statement about Stetson Bennett, but when you're as good as these two teams are at all of the other positions, like, quarterback doesn't matter as much to Alabama right now as it does to USC, or it does to insert almost every other team in college football except for Alabama and Georgia, right? I mean, that's how good they are. We'll see. I guess maybe I've seen Alabama win titles before with what we wouldn't consider best of the best quarterback play. And I'm not suggesting that Alabama wins a title this year, but I think you may see a Alabama trend a little bit closer towards what they were previously. Maybe when they weren't as good offensively, they were a little more conservative, played a little more to their defense. Like they can switch back that direction as well.
Yeah, I think clearly Alabama fans are not thrilled about the quarterback situation, right? And I don't blame them. Tommy Reese looked at those two guys all spring, and then he said, "Hey, Tyler Buchner, come on, man, we need you." And we could all just be completely overreacting to it, right? I mean, Reese could just be bringing him in to compete and push the other guys, and maybe just, for lack of a better term, scare him a little bit. Like, hey, you better get it going.
That, and frankly, just maybe show how he wants things done a little bit better, like in the flesh, like how he wants his drills run, how he wants his offense managed. I mean, that's part of it too. But I'm sure he's going to fight for the job, you know. But it helps to have a guy that knows what you're trying to coach.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But Buckner could also end up being the third string quarterback for them, right? For all we know. Mm-hmm. So, and remember, he's leaving Notre Dame because, from all indications, like Sam Hartman beat him out, right, to be the guy there in South Bend. So I just think that one of the number one reasons Alabama fans are freaking out is clearly they've lost to Georgia, right? The last 2 years, like Georgia has won the last two national titles, right? They feel like they have lost their title of the king of college football. And I get that, but also it is not helping things how good Carson Beck looked in Georgia's spring game.
Yeah.
That dude looked incredible in that game. And Alabama fans are going, we're bringing in Tyler Buchner, and they've got Beck, who is huge and just looked amazing. Are you kidding me? Can't be a good feeling as an Alabama fan.
No, and that's, you know, that's immediately where they're going to go, because it's a little bit different if you're coming off of a national championship, you're given a little bit more leeway, but they're not, and it feels like things are turning into Georgia's favor. So the whole temperature down there in Tuscaloosa is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up being just fine.
Yeah,
one way they could really make up for any shortcomings at the quarterback position, get back to dominating the line of scrimmage along the defensive line.
Yep. That's kind of my point is, and not that it just like you can flip a switch to say, oh, hey, we're going to start playing better defensively now that, you know, we may be down at quarterback. It just, it leans that way because offensively you're going to slow down a little bit, right? You're going to be a little bit more methodical, think things out, use the clock a little bit more in your favor. You may be playing some lower scoring games, but that when you start limiting the possessions and snaps that your defense has to defend, their numbers are going to improve dramatically.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right. How do we feel about how Deion Sanders is going about things there at Colorado? He has, what's the best way to put it, Ted? He has purged the roster there in Boulder.
Yeah, some of it obviously needed to happen, but if you don't feel confident about a better replacement coming in, you're going to need some of these guys. Like, they're not going to have the depth to even practice, much less go out and try and win football games. I mean, you need a roster full of players, and not all of those players are going to be, you know, the best player at their position in the country. You need role players on your team. You need practice squad guys. You need a good practice squad. I mean, there's a bunch of different things that you've got to have, and I don't even know what the number on their roster is right now. They've lost, what, 70 guys have hit the transfer portal since he showed up?
71, right? I saw this from Chris Hummer today. 71 transfer entries. Now, that includes walk-ons, but 71 transfer portal entries for Colorado during the 2022-2023 cycle. It is just, and we've never seen this, right, in college football. And I do think, you know, he's He's cut players, right? That's what he's doing. He's cutting players. And it is completely within the rules. And just a reminder, all right, this is something a new coach comes in, he can do this. Just a reminder, these guys, they have the choice to stay at Colorado and keep their scholarship, right? And get their school paid for. So they're not just getting kicked out of school. That's not how it works, right? They have that choice. They just can't be part of the football team anymore. So it is what it is, but it's not like they're having their scholarship ripped from them and they're just being thrown out on the curb. That's not what is happening here. But I think it makes a lot of people uncomfortable because this is the most business-like decision-making we've ever seen from anyone in college football. This is as business-like as it's ever felt with what's going on at Colorado because, man, we don't bat an eye when an NFL roster goes from 90 to 53. Don't bat an eye.
Nope.
It's, hey, you should have been better, right? It just feels different with it being college kids, even with how much power college football players have now with the portal and with NIL. We've just never seen something to this magnitude in college football. And it's just, people better get used to it. I'm not sure anyone else would be able to pull it off the way that Deion Sanders is being able to pull this off. But it is what it is, man. It's uncomfortable. There's no doubt about it. But that team also sucked last year. They had the worst roster in the Power Five by a lot.
Well, they're going to have the worst roster in the Power Five again because they're just not going to have any numbers.
Right.
He's going to be able to perhaps go to the transfer portal, but the vast majority of the transfer portal it's not like the top quality out there. Frankly, it's mainly guys who have been told you're not going to play here.
Right? Dude, he referred to these guys as old furniture. He said in order to bring the new furniture in and make space, I got to get rid of the old furniture. I mean, he is looking at these guys as like assets. It's undoubtedly, I mean, it's the NFL approach, right? You're an asset. Yeah. That's what you are.
Which, that's all fine. But if you're a player that's in the portal from somewhere else, you're also know that you're going somewhere where you're an asset, right?
No doubt.
And I don't know how that affects him. It doesn't look good just appearance wise that there's that many guys leaving. And, the reasoning is probably sound. They're just flat out not good enough. And Colorado wants me there because I am good enough. Like that passes the smell test, but some guys are going to see that as, well, I think a lot of those players that are good enough to have continued to play there, and there's several, are leaving because it's not a good environment or something. Right. So I have to see how it unfolds, but I'm still optimistic and curious to see how Deion does for the future, but I think this is a bit much for year one.
That's where I'm at, right? And they are, because of cold, callous, whatever word you want to use, like this approach that he's going with. They're losing some players that could help them next season, right? And maybe a guy like, what's his name? He's got an awesome name, Montana Lamonius Craig, the wide receiver that killed it in their spring game. Like, that's a guy, there's no doubt. Deion wants that guy on their team next year, but he's in the portal, right? And they lost a defensive lineman I saw that started like 36 games for them. I don't care how bad they've been. If a guy started 36 games for you along the defensive front, you could use him.
Yeah.
Starting offensive lineman who started a bunch of games for him in the portal, you could use them. Those guys ain't growing on trees, man.
Especially on the line of scrimmage. Like that's going to be their most difficult thing. There's going to be skilled guys that want to go play for Deion, right? We know that, but the interior, the meat and potatoes of the football team, that's going to be his biggest, the most difficult thing for him. And if you don't want to start burning the bridges with the birds you have in hand out there. So I don't know. We'll see. I like I said, I'm still optimistic for Colorado, but my optimism for the upcoming season has really dropped somewhere right around 0, especially after watching some of their spring game and spring practices.
Yeah, but one of the things, and I don't know how much of a red flag is, like, this is one of those things. I'm going to give Deion 3 years, right? He inherited the worst roster in the Power Five. He's just got that administration there in Colorado, like on the page where, hey, these are the things we got to do to get good, right? He has purged the roster, right? So I'm gonna be fair and give him some time, but when you do it this way, if they just get destroyed all of 2023, I mean, people are gonna be very, very critical of the way that he's gone about this. I mean, very, very critical, and especially the guys that transferred. Like, he had guys that he brought with from Jackson State with him that have hit the portal, right? And that Arkansas State tight end I saw today, who he's already in the portal. So there are guys that he wanted, that he brought, that said, hey man, no thanks.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know how much of it is, like, there's obviously guys that they've told, we don't want you playing football here anymore. But I'm wondering, like, how many guys mixed in that they did want jumped into the portal. I don't know. It does. It's having not. I just don't know enough about the roster, and maybe we'll learn more as guys get picked up and tell the story about what went on there and why they decided to leave. Even though a lot of guys aren't gonna, it's just really not the culture of football that you throw the previous staff under the bus. It happens every now and then, but usually don't learn a whole lot of the inner workings and why people left or didn't leave.
Well, I read an article in The Athletic that had quotes from some of these players and some of their parents, basically like, hey, didn't have a choice, got cut.
Yeah.
And some of the parents, like, we understand. A couple of the kids, they'd missed spring ball with injuries, stuff like that, didn't have a chance to show what they could do, cut them. It was like reading an NFL article. I was like, I know what that feels like. I got cut like 8 times. I totally know how that feels. But I don't think, first of all, I don't think anyone other than Deion Sanders would take it to quite this level, right? Lincoln Riley, he did some of this when he took over at USC, right? They got a lot of, they pushed some guys out and got some new guys in, and, had a successful year one. But it wasn't anything close to this. And my hope is that Deion Sanders does right by those kids that he cut, right? Because it's still, and I know he's probably laser focused on building the best team he can build there at Colorado, right? And getting that talent, that talent into the program and building up that roster and winning games. And I totally get that. But you also got to feel a sense of responsibility to help some of these kids you're just cutting loose, like, to help them land somewhere. That's my hope, because he's an extremely influential guy, right? If Deion Sanders calls any coach across the country, they're picking up the phone, right? It's Deion Sanders. So my hope is that he will help as many of those kids that they cut out as possible.
Yeah.
Right. Because I believe, I'm a big believer in right and wrong. I don't necessarily think what he did here is wrong. It's within the rules. It's cold. It's callous. I get it. But I do think it would be wrong if he didn't help those guys as much as he could land somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah. We'll see if he does, and I know that the whole practice film situation was an issue, which I happen to be on Deion's side on the practice film thing. but they made the right decision to start making that film available. Which the problem with that is, like, you don't just click a button and make it available. Like, it's a whole process to get every player. Like, that's a lot of work for somebody.
No one is angrier than Colorado's film department right now.
That's a lot.
Wait, we got to make all these cut ups for these guys that aren't playing here anymore.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Hours and hours of work editing.
It's a huge undertaking. So I understand why they weren't doing it, but the backlash was there. But whatever. I'm curious to see what he's able to bring in. We won't be talking about this if they're starting to pick up transfer additions left and right from the portal and good players and, building their roster back. It's not going to be that big of a factor. But if they just hit a little bit of a headwind in getting guys in, they're going to be back to asking those players that they cut to come back for fall camp.
Yeah. I could see ultimately, parents want their kid to end up somewhere where they're going to get developed and they're going to have a chance to go play in the NFL, right? But parents also want their kids to feel like they're valued by the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. Not just as an asset, but like as a person. And I just wonder some parents won't have any problem with what Deion just did. None. But I do wonder if there's some parents out there going, or if he treated all these kids that way, how's he going to treat my son? Yeah. Right? That doubt has had to creep into some parents, not all, but some, right? As their sons are being recruited by Colorado, like that has to be in these parents' heads now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, welcome to the world of being treated as an asset. Sometimes it waits till after college. Right now you're getting it in college, but it's coming one day or another, and you've arrived early.
Yeah. You guys, players want all this power in college football. This is the result.
That's right.
This is the result. Hit the portal. All right.